My name is Eris. I am 52 years old, and I have spent my entire adult life looking at the stars. As an astronaut and an astrophysicist, I thought I knew the heavens better than almost anyone alive. I was wrong. On April 11th, 2022, I died in a high-G centrifuge during a training exercise. I was clinically dead for 22 minutes. And in those 22 minutes, I was shown the universe as it truly is. I met its creator, and he showed me a planet that humanity is on the verge of discovering. And his warning about what that discovery will mean, it should terrify all of us. To understand what happened to me, you have to understand who I was before. My life was a series of calculations. Orbits, trajectories, fuel-to-weight ratios, the spectral analysis of distant stars. I lived in a world of beautiful, cold, hard facts. The universe, to me, was the most magnificent machine ever built, and my job, my passion, was to understand its mechanics. I had a family, a wonderful wife, Sarah, and a daughter, Lily. I love them. Of course I love them. But if I am being honest, my real bride was the cosmos. My true child was the next equation, the next discovery. My family got what was left over of me at the end of the day. They got the tired man, the man whose mind was still charting a course through an asteroid belt while he was supposed to be listening to a story about school. My core flaw wasn't malice. It wasn't anger. It was a deep, intellectual pride. I believed that what could be measured was all that was real. If I couldn't prove it with mathematics, if I couldn't observe it through a lens, then it was just sentiment, mythology, a nice story for people who needed comfort in the face of the magnificent, empty void. Sarah was a woman of quiet, simple faith. She never pushed it on me, but it was there, like a gentle fragrance in our home. She would look at the pictures I brought home from the agency, the nebulae like spilled paint on black velvet, and she would whisper, "It's so beautiful. Look what God made." And I, in my pride, would gently correct her. "It's a stellar nursery, honey. Gravitational collapse of interstellar gas and dust. It's physics. But yes, it is beautiful." I corrected her, as if beauty and physics were mutually exclusive, as if her wonder was a problem to be solved with a better definition. I remember one night, just a few days before the accident. Lily, my daughter, was 12. She was working on a school project about the solar system. I was thrilled, of course. This was my world. I sat with her at the dining room table, our faces lit by the glow of her tablet. She was pointing at a picture of Earth from space, that famous blue marble. "Daddy," she asked, her voice full of genuine curiosity, "do you ever feel small out there?" I smiled. "Of course. We all do. But it's a good thing. It gives us perspective." She looked at me, her brow furrowed. "Sarah says a prayer for you every time you train. She says she asks God to hold you in his hands." I felt a familiar, patient weariness settle in my chest. It was the feeling of having to explain gravity to someone who believes in invisible strings. "Well, that's very nice of her," I said, my eyes drifting back to the tablet, to the numbers and data scrolling by. "But what's really holding me in place is a very complex and well-tested system of orbital mechanics and life support. It's science, sweetie. We can count on that." I saw the light in her eyes dim just a little. She had come to me with a question about soul-deep wonder, and I had answered her with a technical manual. I had taken her moment of connection and turned it into a lecture. I reached out and tapped the screen. "Now, look at the atmospheric composition here. This is fascinating." I changed the subject. I steered her back to the world of facts, the world where I was comfortable, the world where I was king. I had no idea that in just a few days, that little moment, that dismissal of my daughter's soul, would come back to haunt me with the force of 1,000 suns. I had no idea how wrong I was. The day it happened started like any other training day. The air at the facility crackled with a unique energy, a blend of intense focus, quiet professionalism, and the low hum of ridiculously powerful machinery. I was scheduled for a session in the high-G centrifuge. We called it the spinner. It was a brutal, necessary beast. A long arm with a cockpit at the end that could simulate the crushing gravitational forces of launch and re-entry. I loved it. It was a physical test that pushed the human body to its absolute limits. For me, it was another equation to solve with my own biology. I remember the routine, the flight suit, the helmet clicking into place, the familiar smell of ionized air and clean metal. I gave a thumbs up to the technician, a good man named Marcus. He smiled back from the control booth. The canopy hissed shut, sealing me in. My world narrowed to the instruments in front of me and the sound of my own breathing, amplified in my ears. "Ready, Eris?" Marcus's voice crackled through the comms. "Born ready, Marcus. Let's dance." The initial spin was gentle, then it began to build. 1G. 2. The familiar weight settled on me, like a heavy blanket. 3GS. My arms felt like lead. My breathing became a conscious effort. This was the routine. 4GS. 5. The pressure was immense. My training kicked in. The special breathing technique, the grunting to keep the blood from rushing out of my head. My vision started to narrow, the periphery turning gray. 6GS. 7. My face was contorted, my body screaming. But my mind was sharp. I was watching the gauges, performing the checklist. I was in my element. Then something went wrong. There was a sound, a deep, violent clunk that vibrated through the entire structure. It wasn't part of the simulation. A red light flashed on my console, a warning I had never seen before. Drive malfunction. Instead of decelerating, the centrifuge sped up. "Marcus, shut it down." I yelled, my voice a strained grunt. "Shut it down now." "I'm trying, Eris." "It's not responding." His voice was tight with panic. 8GS. 9. The force was unimaginable. It wasn't just pressure anymore. It was a physical crushing. I felt my ribs creak. It felt like an elephant was sitting on me. No, a herd of elephants. My vision tunneled into a tiny, bright pinprick. The gray turned to black. I could hear my own heart hammering in my ears, a frantic, desperate drumbeat against the wall of my chest. It was a machine being pushed past its breaking point. And then it stopped. The hammering just ceased. My last conscious thought wasn't of physics. It wasn't of orbits or stars. It was a single, crystal-clear image. My daughter, Lily, at the dining room table, her eyes full of a question I had been too proud and too blind to answer. And a single word formed in my mind. Lily. And then everything went black. But it wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The crushing pressure vanished. The pain was gone. The roaring sound of the machine was replaced by a profound, absolute silence. And I was floating. There was a gentle, upward pull, a feeling of incredible lightness and freedom. My first thought was, the machine must have broken apart. I've been thrown clear. But there was no wind, no sense of falling, just a serene, effortless ascent. I opened my eyes. Or, I became aware that I was seeing. I was near the ceiling of the centrifuge chamber. I was looking down. And I saw it. I saw my own body, slumped in the cockpit. The canopy had been jettisoned, and Marcus and 2 other technicians were frantically trying to get me out. I saw the scene with a strange, detached calm. There was no fear. There was no panic. It was like watching a movie. A very intense, very realistic movie, but I was just an observer. I could see the frantic look on Marcus's face, the sweat beading on his forehead. I could see the focused desperation of the paramedics who had just arrived, pulling out a defibrillator. I felt a wave of empathy for them. I felt sad that they were so scared, so distraught. But I didn't feel sad for the man in the chair. I knew that was my body. I recognized the flight suit, the lines on my face, the wedding ring on my left hand. But it felt distant, like a car I used to drive, a tool I used to use. It was no longer me. The me was up here, weightless, painless, peaceful. I watched them pull my body onto the floor. I watched them rip open the flight suit. I heard them yelling things. No pulse. Charging to 200. I saw the paddles placed on my chest. I saw my body jolt violently. Once. Twice. Nothing. The scene below began to feel less real. The edges started to blur. The sounds started to fade, not into silence, but into a single, low, resonant hum. The world I knew, the world of concrete and steel and frantic human effort, was dissolving. It was like a watercolor painting left out in the rain. The sharp lines of reality were bleeding away, losing their form. I felt a gentle tug, pulling me away, not just upwards, but inwards. My last connection to that room, to that life, was the sight of my own still hand on the cold floor. The gold of my wedding ring caught the harsh facility light. And a thought echoed, not in words, but in pure feeling. "I'm sorry, Sarah." Then, even that faded, and I was gone. The comforting darkness didn't last long. It wasn't a void. It was a presence. A warm, velvety, peaceful blackness that held me like a mother holds a sleeping child. And then, in the distance, I saw a point of light. It was small at first, like a single star in the infinite night. But it grew steadily, expanding to fill my awareness. This wasn't the light of a star. It wasn't the harsh, analytical light of science that I knew. That light reveals, it exposes, it allows for measurement. This light, it was different. It was alive. It was made of something more than photons. It was made of peace. It was made of joy. It was made of a love so pure and so powerful that it was a tangible thing. I could feel it on my non-physical skin. It was soaking into the very core of my being, healing places I never even knew were broken. As the light grew, the darkness receded, and I found myself standing. I was in a garden, but that word is an insult to what I saw. The grass beneath my feet was a shade of green, so vibrant it seemed to hum with life. Every single blade was its own perfect creation. There were trees whose leaves glowed with a soft, internal light, shimmering in a breeze that carried not a scent, but a feeling of absolute well-being. Everything was hyperreal, more real than the world I had left behind. My senses, which I didn't physically possess, were overwhelmed with perfection. And that's when I saw him. He was standing by a simple stream, the water of which flowed with liquid light. It was Jesus. I knew it instantly. There was no doubt, no question. It was a knowing that bypassed my intellect and went straight to my soul. He didn't look like the pictures. There was no long, flowing white robe, no ethereal, wispy halo. He looked strong, real. He was dressed simply, like a carpenter or a laborer. But his presence was the source of all the light, all the peace, all the love that filled this place. He turned to look at me. And his eyes. I cannot describe his eyes with human words. I am a man of language, of data, of description, and I fail completely. To look into his eyes was to be completely, totally, and perfectly known. Every secret shame, every hidden pride, every forgotten kindness, every moment of my life was seen, not with judgment, but with a love that was so profound it was heartbreaking. It was a love that said, "I know everything you've ever done, and I love you. I love you anyway. Welcome home." He didn't have to say a word. The love pouring from him was a message in itself. All my pride, my intellectual certainty, my life's work of understanding the universe through equations, all of it crumbled into dust. It was like bringing a child's crayon drawing of the sun to the surface of the actual sun. It was meaningless. I did the only thing I could do. My knees buckled and I fell to the ground, weeping. But these were not tears of sadness. They were tears of overwhelming relief. Tears of a joy so intense it was painful. I was a lost, arrogant child who had finally found his father. He walked over to me, and the light and love intensified. He knelt down, and then he spoke. The words didn't enter my ears. They bloomed inside my mind, inside my soul. They were as clear as a bell in the silent garden. "Peace, Eris. Be at peace, my son." The sound of my name, spoken by him, was the most beautiful thing I had ever heard. It was my true name, spoken by the one who had conceived of me before time began. I couldn't speak. I could only weep, my head bowed in a mixture of unworthiness and unbelievable gratitude. He waited patiently. There was no rush in this place. Time was a meaningless concept. When my weeping finally subsided, I managed to form a thought, a question, aimed at him. Why? I didn't believe. I was so proud. His answer was immediate, and it washed over me like a warm tide, cleansing the last of my shame. "I know, but I always believed in you." He let that sink in. He let me feel the truth of it. That all my life, through all my denial and scientific certainty, he had been there, waiting patiently, loving me unconditionally. He stood up and gently beckoned for me to rise. I did, feeling unsteady, like a newborn foal. "There is something I need to show you," he said, the words echoing with a gentle, loving authority. "Your work gave you a unique perspective. Now, I will give you mine." The garden around us didn't vanish. Instead, the space before us began to shimmer, like heat haze on a runway. The air itself became a screen, a canvas. And on it, I saw my own life. I saw myself at my desk, years ago, staring intently at a computer screen filled with data from a deep space probe. In the doorway stood Sarah, my wife. She was holding 2 coffee mugs, smiling. "Take a break?" she asked. "Just for 5 minutes." I saw myself wave a dismissive hand, my eyes never leaving the screen. "In a minute, honey. This is big." The scene showed me what I hadn't seen then. It showed me the smile fading from her face, the light in her eyes dimming, the quiet sigh as she turned and walked away, leaving one of the mugs on the corner of my desk, where it would grow cold, untouched. The vision shifted. I saw myself with Lily in our backyard. I had set up a powerful telescope. I was showing her Jupiter. "See the bands, Lily? That's the zonal jets. And those little dots? The Galilean moons." I was so proud, so full of my own knowledge. She looked up at me, "Not the planet. It looks like a tiger," I marvel. "It's magic." And I heard my own voice, patient but condescending. "It's not magic, sweetie. It's gas dynamics and gravitational fields." I saw the wonder drain from her face, replaced by a dutiful nod. I had taken her poetry and crushed it with my textbook. Scene after scene played out. Me, on the phone with the agency, while Lily tried to show me a drawing she made. Me, explaining the physics of a rainbow to Sarah, instead of just sharing in its beauty with her. Every scene was a monument to my pride, a testament to a man who loved concepts more than people, a man who traded moments of connection for morsels of data. Jesus didn't say a word. He didn't have to. There was no condemnation in these visions, only a gentle, heartbreaking sadness. The sadness of missed opportunities. The sadness of a love that was offered but not received. I saw my life not as I had remembered it, a noble pursuit of knowledge, but as it truly was, a series of failures to connect, a long, slow process of isolating myself with my own intelligence. The vision of my life faded, leaving me raw and exposed. "I was so blind," I whispered. "You were looking at my creation," Jesus said gently. "But you were not looking for me. You were looking for yourself, for your own understanding." The space before us shimmered again. This time, it wasn't my small life. It was the Earth, the whole planet, hanging in the beautiful, peaceful void. But it was different. I saw threads of light connecting people. Golden, shimmering threads. A husband to a wife. A mother to a child. A friend to a friend. And I saw tiny, dark, shadowy creatures, like leeches made of smoke. They weren't attacking the people. They were attacking the threads. They swarmed around the threads that shone the brightest, the ones of love and true connection. And they would chew on them, not to break them, but to thin them, to make them frayed and weak. I watched as a family sat at a dinner table. They were all together, but they weren't. The father was looking at a small, glowing screen in his hand. The daughter had buds in her ears, her eyes glazed over. The mother was staring into the distance, lost in her own worries. The golden threads between them were there, but they were thin, almost transparent. And the shadowy leeches were feasting, growing fat on the distraction, on the disconnection. The vision zoomed out, and I saw this happening all over the world. A silent, creeping plague. A theft of connection happening on a global scale. The enemy, the thief, Jesus spoke, his voice filled with a deep sorrow. He does not need to make them evil. He only needs to make them empty. He steals their time with trivialities. He steals their attention with endless scrolling. He steals their conversations with distraction. He offers them the world at their fingertips, and they trade it for the person sitting right next to them. It is a silent theft of family, of friendship, of purpose. And in the silence, when they are finally alone, surrounded by the echoes of 1,000 shallow connections, they cannot hear me. They have forgotten how to listen in the quiet. Then, the vision changed again. It was the most terrifying of all. The view shifted from Earth and pulled back, deep into space. As an astronomer, I knew this view. We were moving towards a part of the Orion Spur, a region we had been surveying for years. And then I saw it. Hiding in the glare of a distant star was a planet. A new one. It was beautiful. A world of swirling blues and violets, with faint, silvery rings. It was a jewel. "Soon," Jesus said, his voice now filled with a profound gravity, "your world will find this. Your telescopes will finally be strong enough to see it past the star's glare. I felt a flicker of my old self, a spark of professional excitement. A new planet, a terrestrial world in a potentially habitable zone, the discovery of a lifetime. But Jesus's next words extinguished that spark completely. This discovery, he said, will be seen as humanity's greatest achievement. It will be on every screen, in every news report. It will be held up as the ultimate proof of your own genius. Proof that you are the masters of the universe, that your knowledge is your salvation. The vision shifted again. I saw scenes from the near future. I saw people celebrating in the streets. I saw scientists becoming global heroes, their faces on the covers of magazines. I saw humanity uniting, not in love or humility, but in a shared, global pride. I saw them name the planet. They didn't name it after a god or a myth. They named it Daedalus, after the great inventor of Greek myth, the ultimate symbol of human ingenuity. They will worship their own cleverness, Jesus said, his voice a sad whisper. They will build temples of data and observatories of glass and steel to a rock in the void, and they will forget the one who built them. The enemy will use this discovery as his crowning achievement. He will not need to deny my existence. He will simply make me irrelevant. Why would a people who can find new worlds need a savior? Why would they look to heaven when they have charted it themselves? This planet is not evil, Eris. It is my creation, like all others. It is beautiful, but the pride of man will turn it into an idol. They will fall down and worship their own reflection in the lens of a telescope. He looked at me then, his sorrowful eyes piercing my soul. I died for a relationship, not a simulation. I died to bridge the gap between their hearts and the heart of my Father. The enemy wants them to build a bridge of knowledge to a dead world instead. The weight of what he was showing me was crushing. It was a subtle, insidious plan. A checkmate not of force, but of distraction and pride. Using a beautiful truth, a new discovery, to tell the most profound lie, that humanity is enough for itself. What do we do? I asked, my voice trembling. What can anyone do? He looked at me, and for the first time, a glimmer of light returned to his eyes, a spark of hope. Choose what is real, he said, the words resonating with simple, ultimate power. When the world tells them to look up at the new planet in pride, I need my children to look up in wonder. And then I need them to look at each other in love. I need them to choose the clumsy, real conversation over the perfect, empty feed. I need them to choose the person in the room over the billion people on the screen. Their smallest acts of true connection, of selfless love, are like thunder in the spiritual realm. Their smallest, humblest prayers shake the foundations of the enemy's plans. This is the battle, not for land or for power, but for presence, for the heart. The vision faded. The earth, the planet, the future, it all dissolved back into the serene beauty of the garden. I was left standing before him, shattered and rebuilt. I want to stay, I pleaded. The thought of going back to that world of shadows and disconnection was an agony beyond words. Please, let me stay here with you. This is home. The pain of that plea was immense. I had been a lonely man my entire life, even in a crowded room, even with my own family. My loneliness was a heavy blanket woven from pride and intellect. Here, in his presence, for the first time in my existence, I was not lonely. I was fully known, fully seen, and fully loved. To leave this was to be exiled from the only home my soul had ever known. He looked at me, and his eyes were full of compassion for my pain. He understood. But his response was gentle and firm. Your work is not done, my son. But I can't, I begged. I'm not strong enough. The world is too loud. I'll forget this. I'll fall back into what I was. He reached out and placed a hand on my shoulder. The warmth, the love, the power that flowed from his touch was indescribable. It was a promise. It was an anointing. You will not be alone, he said, his voice resonating with the force of a creator's vow. I will never leave you. I will be with you. I will be your strength. You must go back, Eris. You must be a light. You must tell them what you saw. Not just about the planet, but about the choice they must make every day, every hour. You must go back and learn to truly see your wife and your daughter. That is your first and most important mission. Go back and choose what is real. He didn't need to say anything more. His mission was clear. It wasn't to become a prophet on a street corner. It was to live a life of authentic connection, first with my family, and then to share my story with anyone who would listen. He looked at me one last time, a look of profound, encouraging love. It is time. He didn't push me. He just released me. The feeling was of letting go, and then falling. The beautiful garden, the living light, the face of love itself, it all rushed away from me as I plunged back down, back into the cold, the dark, the pain. The return to my body was the single most violent and agonizing experience imaginable. It was a jarring, brutal crash. One moment I was weightless spirit, the next I was slammed back into the confines of flesh and bone. A tidal wave of pain washed over me. The feeling of my ribs, which I now knew were broken. The searing ache in my chest. My first breath was fire. It burned its way down my throat and into my lungs, a ragged, desperate gasp that turned into a raw, guttural scream. My eyes flew open. The harsh fluorescent lights of the facility were like daggers. The sounds, people shouting my name, the beeping of medical equipment, were a deafening cacophony after the perfect peace I had known. It was sensory overload. It was torture. But worse than all of it, worse than the pain and the noise and the blinding light, was the grief. A profound, soul-deep homesickness washed over me. I had been torn from paradise, ripped from the presence of my Maker, and thrown back into this broken, dim, painful world. I started to sob, great, heaving sobs of loss. "He's back. He's breathing," someone yelled. Hands were on me, turning me, checking me. I saw Marcus's face swim into view above me, tears streaming down his cheeks, mingled with sweat. "Eris. Oh God, Eris, you're back." But I wasn't back. Not really. I had left the realest part of myself behind in that garden. I was in exile. They rushed me to the infirmary, and then to the hospital. I was aware of the motion, the worried faces, the urgent voices. But I was detached from it all, lost in the echoing memory of his voice, his face. My wife, Sarah, arrived. Her face was a mask of terror and relief. She grabbed my hand, and her touch was the first thing that felt real, the first anchor in this storm of pain and grief. "Eris," she whispered, her voice choked with tears. "They told me. They said you were gone." I looked at her, and for the first time, I think I truly saw her. I saw the deep lines of worry around her eyes. I saw the steadfast love in her gaze. I saw the woman who had prayed for me, who had tried to connect with me, who I had so often pushed aside for my work. And I remembered my mission. You must go back and learn to truly see your wife. My own tears started again, but this time, they were for her. For all the years I had been blind. "I'm sorry," I whispered, my voice hoarse. "I'm so sorry, Sarah." She just held my hand tighter, confusion and love warring in her eyes. The doctors were baffled. That became the word of the day. Baffled, confused, stunned. My primary physician, a brilliant man named Dr. Evans, came into my room later that day, holding a stack of charts and scans. He had this look on his face, like a mathematician who had just discovered that 2 + 2 = 5. "Eris," he began, pulling up a chair. "We need to talk about what happened." He explained it in clinical terms. My heart had gone into ventricular fibrillation due to the extreme G-forces. It had stopped. No pulse. No breathing. For 22 minutes. 22 minutes, he repeated, shaking his head as if to dislodge the fact. "Eris, there is no medical explanation for you being here right now. And there is absolutely no explanation for this." He held up a brain scan. "This is your MRI. It's clean. Perfectly normal. After 22 minutes of oxygen deprivation, your brain should be, well, it shouldn't look like this. It should show massive, catastrophic damage." He showed me my cardiac report. "Your heart shows some bruising, consistent with the trauma, but it's functioning perfectly. No sign of the damage that should have been caused by an event of this magnitude." He put the charts down and looked me straight in the eye. He was a man of science, just like I had been. He searched for words. "I don't know what to tell you, Eris. We did everything we could, but you were gone. Clinically, factually, you were deceased. And now you're not. I've been a doctor for 30 years, and I have never seen anything like this. It's impossible." He hesitated, then leaned in, lowering his voice. The paramedics, the technicians, my team, we're all saying the same thing, even if we don't want to say it out loud. "What's that?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. He looked at me, a man of science forced to confront something beyond his understanding. It's a miracle. That word, spoken by him, was the final confirmation, the proof for the part of my brain that still clung to the old ways. The changes in my life were immediate and radical. The old heiress was gone. He had died in that centrifuge. The man who came back was someone new. The first thing I did when I got home was take the expensive, powerful telescope from my study, the one I had spent more time with in my own family, and I sold it. I resigned from the space program. The cosmos was no longer a puzzle for me to solve. It was a painting for me to admire, a love letter from its creator. The heavy, lonely blanket of pride I had worn my entire life was gone. Lifted. I started to talk to my wife. I mean, really talk. I asked her about her day, and I listened. I shared my fears, my hopes, this incredible, impossible thing that had happened to me. I sat with my daughter, Lily, and I didn't try to teach her anything. I just let her teach me. I listened to her stories about school, her friends, her dreams. I looked at her drawings and saw not just scribbles, but a window into her soul. One evening, a few weeks after I came home, Lily and I were in the backyard. A brilliant, full moon was rising. The old me would have started a lecture on albedo and orbital periods. The new me just sat beside her on the grass, in silence. She looked over at me. "It's beautiful, isn't it, Daddy?" I put my arm around her and pulled her close. "Yes, sweetie," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "It's a miracle." She leaned her head on my shoulder, and we watched it together. The golden thread of connection between us, once so frayed and thin, was now shining like a brilliant, unbreakable cable. I was finally choosing what was real. So I'm telling you this story, all of you, for a reason. Because the warning I was given was not just for me. It was for you. Soon, maybe in a year, maybe in 5, you are going to hear the news. Scientists will announce it with tremendous fanfare. They have discovered a new planet, a second Earth, a testament to human ingenuity. They will name it something that honors humanity, not God. They will celebrate our science, our knowledge, our reach. And none of that is wrong. It is a great achievement. But that is the trap. The tool is not the enemy. The phone is not evil. The telescope is not a sin. But the pride they can foster, the distraction they can sow, that is the battlefield. The enemy's plan is to use that discovery to make you feel so proud of what humanity can do that you forget to be humble before the one who made humanity. He wants you to trade the creator for the creation. So I am asking you, I am begging you, when that day comes, and you see the image of that beautiful new world on your screen, remember this story. When you look up into the night sky, don't just worship the genius that found the planet. Worship the genius that placed it there, in a cosmic dance so perfect and so vast it defies comprehension. And then, after you've looked up, I need you to do something even more important. I need you to look across your dinner table. I need you to look at your child, your spouse, your friend. Look them in the eye. Put your phone down. Take the earbuds out. And choose what is real. Choose the messy, beautiful, difficult, glorious reality of human connection. Because that is where he is. That is the front line. Heaven is real. Jesus is real. And his love for you is more powerful and more vast than all the stars in the universe. Don't let the search for new worlds cause you to lose your own soul.